Good afternoon. This is Mr. Clemmons here to talk with AP students in my classes, Mr. Miller's classes, about the time period from 1920 to 1945, and to do a review over that. Don't forget that for the AP exam, you have three short answer questions. You'll have about 40 minutes to do those. You'll have one long DBQ, about 60 minutes for that. You'll have one long essay question, about 35-40 minutes for that. And then you'll have 55 multiple choice questions that you'll have to do and that you'll have to deal with. So be mindful of those things as you're getting ready for the AP exam. Okay? So let's get started on the timeline, and I'm going to go back to 1919 just to lead into 1920, just because you're at the very end of the war. Then I'm going to go one thing into 1946 just to wrap all things up. Okay? So in 1919, the Versailles Peace Treaty ending World War I stripped Germany of land and natural resources, mandates steep reductions in the size of Germany's army and navy, and levies punitive reparations, later set at $32 billion. January 29th, the 18th Amendment to the Constitution bans the manufacture, sale, or transportation of liquors. At the time the amendment was adopted, prohibition was already in effect in all southern and western states except California and Louisiana. September, 350,000 steel workers strike, followed by 400,000 miners 40 days later. Altogether, 4 million workers went on strike during the year. September 25th, President Wilson collapses from a stroke. November 7th, Palmer raids under orders from Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer. Department of Justice agents raid the headquarters of leftist organizations in a dozen cities. The Senate fails to ratify the Versailles Peace Treaty. The Senate votes 55 to 9, 9 votes short of the required two-thirds majority. 1920, January 2nd, the government agents arrest members of the IWW and the Communist Party in 33 cities. 556 aliens are deported for their political beliefs. March 19th, the Senate votes 49 to 35 to join the League of Nations, 7 votes short of the two-thirds majority needed for ratification. Defeat became certain when President Wilson instructed his supporters to vote down a League bill with Republican amendments attached. August 18th, the Women's Suffrage Amendment to the Constitution was ratified. November, Warren G. Harding, a Republican, is elected president. May 21st, 1921, May 19th, Congress institutes a quota system that limits immigration to 3% of a nationality in the number 1910 census. November 12th, at the Washington Conference for Limitation of Armaments, conferees agree to restrict future construction of warships. August 2nd, Warren G. Harding dies of a heart attack. Vice President Coolidge replaces him. May 24th, Congress reduces immigration to approximately 150,000 people a year, limiting each nationality to 2% of the number of persons in the U.S. in 1890. November, 2 states, Wyoming and Texas, elect women governors. Calvin Coolidge is elected president. Let's flip on over here into 1925. At the Scopes monkey trial in July in Dayton, Tennessee, schoolteacher John Scopes is tried for violating a Tennessee law. Prosecuting Attorney General William Jennings Bryan to the stand. Scopes' defense attorney, Clarence Darrell, calls prosecuting attorney William Jennings Bryan to the stand and ridiculed Bryan's fundamentalist religious beliefs. Scopes was found guilty of violating the law and fined $100. The sentence was later overturned. In 1926, Ford introduces the 49-hour work week in the auto industry. In 1927, May, 25-year-old Charles Lindbergh flies from Long Island to Paris in 33 hours and 29 minutes. August 23rd, anarchists Nicholas Sacco and Bartolomeo Vanzetti are executed in Massachusetts for the 1920 killing of a factory guard despite protests that they were being punished for their radical beliefs. In 1928, 15 nations signed the Kellogg-Briand Pact, which renounces war as an instrument of national policy. Eventually, 60 nations ratified that agreement, which lacked any enforcement mechanism. November, Herbert Hoover, a Republican, is elected president. February 14th, 1929, St. Valentine's Day Massacre. 14 members of a Chicago gang are shot to death in a Chicago warehouse on orders from Al Capone. October 29th, Black Tuesday. The bull market in the late 1920s comes to a crashing end. Between September 3rd and December 1st, the stocks declined $26 billion in value. Okay, June 17th, the Smoot-Hawley tariff raises duties on agricultural and manufactured goods, triggering foreign retaliation. 1931, March 3rd, President Herbert Hoover signs an act making the Star-Spangled Banner the national anthem, so now you know. March 9, 9 black youths, African-American youths, the Scottsboro Boys, are charged with rape. The case established the right of African Americans to serve on juries. September, a bank panic leads to 305 banks to close in September and another 522 in October. 1932, January, the Reconstruction Finance Corporation is established to provide loans to banks, railroads, and insurance companies. March 1st, the son of aviator Charles Lindbergh is kidnapped. July 2nd, Democratic presidential candidate Franklin Roosevelt promises a new deal for the American people. July 28th, the Bonus Army. President Herbert Hoover orders the Army to remove 15,000 World War I veterans who had been camped in Washington for 2 months, demanding early payment of the bonus due to them in 1945. In November, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a Democrat, is elected president. 1933, in January, Adolf Hitler, the leader of Germany's Nazi party, is appointed chancellor. March 4th, Franklin D. Roosevelt becomes president and launches the New Deal. In his inaugural address, he says, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." During his first 100 days in office, Congress enacts the AAA, which provides farmers with payments for restricting production. It establishes Civil Works Administration and the Public Works Administration. It creates the Civilian Conservation Corps and the Tennessee Valley Authority, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Federal Communications Commission, and the Federal Bank Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC. December 5th, Prohibition is repealed. 1934, January 1st, Dr. Francis Townsend, a 66-year-old retired dentist, proposed a federally funded pensions for the elderly. That will later lead to Social Security. September 15th, the Nuremberg Laws strip German Jews and prohibit intermarriage with non-Jews. 1935, May 27th, the Supreme Court declares the National Industrial Recovery Act unconstitutional, suggesting that any federal effort to legislate wages, prices, and work conditions was invalid. July 5th, the Wagner Act guarantees workers' right to bargain collectively. August 14th, President Roosevelt signs the Social Security Act. September 8th, Huey Long is assassinated in Louisiana's state capital. October 18th, the Committee for Industrial Organizations is formed by John L. Lewis, President of the United Mine Workers, as its head. In 1938, it became the Congress of Industrial Organizations. Unlike the AFL, it did not limit membership to skilled workers. March 7th, in violation of the Treaty of Versailles ending World War I, 7,000 German troops occupy the Rhineland. All right, here we go. In the summer of 1936, Jesse Owens wins 4 medals at the Olympics in Berlin, rebutting Hitler's claims about the superiority of the Aryan race. July 17th, Civil War erupts in Spain, ending the country's 5-year experiment with democracy. Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini provide arms to General Francisco Franco, who defeats the Loyalists in 1939 and imposes a dictatorship. In 1937, February 5th, President Roosevelt proposes court packing scheme. February 11th, after a 44-day occupation of General Motors factories, GM recognizes the United Automobile Workers. March 29th, the Supreme Court upholds the minimum wage law for women. And April 12th, the Supreme Court upholds the National Labor Relations Act of 1935. A Neutrality Act prohibits, May 1st, prohibits the export of arms and ammunition to belligerents of World War II, which is already starting in Europe and in China. May 24th, the Supreme Court holds the constitutionality of the Social Security Act. December 12th, Japanese planes sink the U.S. gunboat Panay in Chinese waters, killing 2. The Japanese government apologized and pays reparations. In 1938, September 29th, the Munich Pact to avert war, Britain and France give in to Hitler's claim to the Sudetenland, a German-populated part of Czechoslovakia. Critics denounced the agreement as appeasement. Okay. 1939, April 9th, denied the use of the Constitution Hall by the Daughters of the American Revolution. Contralto Marian Anderson, an African-American, sings at the Lincoln Memorial before 75,000 people. August 23rd, Germany and the Soviet Union signed a non-aggression pact. The 2 countries agreed to divide Poland. In September, World War II begins following Germany's invasion of Poland on September 1st, 1939. 1940, April 9th, Norway and Denmark fall to the Nazis. May 10th through 29, Germany captures Holland, Belgium, and Luxembourg. May 26th to June 4th, 338,000 Allied forces, mainly British, evacuate the continent at Dunkirk. June 28th, the Smith Act outlaws organizations advocating the overthrow of the U.S. government. August to November, the Battle of Britain, the Royal Air Force repels the Luftwaffe. September 3rd, the U.S. military provides, sorry, that's not correct. The U.S. provides Britain with 50 aging destroyers in exchange for 99-year leases on 8 military bases in Newfoundland and in the West Indies. January 13th, 1941, President Roosevelt calls on Congress to defend our 4 essential freedoms of speech: freedom of religion, freedom from want, freedom from fear. March 11th, the Lend-Lease program. The U.S. provides Britain with arms and supplies on a loan-only basis. They'll pay us after the war. April 11th, the Office of Price Administration is established with power to set production priorities and price and institute rationing. In the summer of 1941, President Roosevelt freezes German, Italian, and Japanese assets and embargoes shipments of gasoline and scrap metal to Japan. June 22nd, Germany invades Russia in violation of the Nazi-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact. December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. Japanese planes and submarines attacked the American fleet anchored at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The surprise attack heavily damaged or sank 19 ships and killed 3,457 soldiers, sailors, and civilians. 1942, February 19th, President Roosevelt authorizes the internment of 112,000 Japanese Americans living along the Pacific coast. Japanese Americans in Hawaii were not interned. More than 17,000 Japanese Americans served in the U.S. Army and during the armed forces during the war. April 10th, the Bataan Death March begins. 10,000 U.S. and 45,000 Filipino prisoners of war are forced to march 120 miles from Pampanga province. 52,000 Americans and thousands of Filipinos died during the march. April 18th, 30 seconds over Tokyo, Colonel Jimmy Doolittle's carriers-based aircraft bombed Tokyo. May 15th, gas rationing is put into effect, limiting drives to 3 gallons a week. Drivers. June 3rd to 6th, Battle of Midway, the U.S. aircraft carriers repel a Japanese assault on the Central Pacific, sinking 17 Japanese ships and shooting down 250 airplanes. July 25th, British and American forces invade French North Africa. December 2nd, a research team led by physicist Enrico Fermi produces the first successful atomic chain reaction at the University of Chicago. Hang on a second. May 9th and 10th, some 250,000 German troops surrender in Tunisia, abandoning the last Nazi stronghold in Africa. June 5th through 8th, the Zoot Suit Riot. Sailors in Los Angeles attack Mexican Americans. July 10th, 150,000 British, American, and Canadian forces land in Sicily, conquering the island in 5 weeks. July 25th, Benito Mussolini is forced to resign as head of Italy's government after 21-year rule. September, British and American forces advance into Italy. June 6th, D-Day, 1944, over a 48-hour period, 156,000 American troops stormed the beaches of Normandy in France, while 8,000 Allied planes provide air cover. June 22nd, President Roosevelt signs the GI Bill of Rights, providing educational and vocational benefits for the returning veterans. October 22nd to 27th, the Battle of Leyte Gulf, at the largest naval battle in history, 166 U.S. ships and 1,280 planes destroyed 5 Japanese carriers with 1 battleship, 14 cruisers, and 43 other ships destroyed 7,000 aircraft. December 16th, the last German counteroffensive in the war, the Battle of the Bulge, begins in Luxembourg due to Belgium. In 1945, April 25th to June 26th, representatives from 50 nations draft the United Nations Charter in San Francisco. Our own Eleanor Roosevelt was there representing the United States. April 30th, Adolf Hitler commits suicide in an underground bunker in Berlin. May 7th, Victory over Europe Day, German forces surrender to the Allies. Germany is divided into 4 zones. September 2nd, Japan formally surrendered in a ceremony aboard the United States and the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. November 20th, the Nuremberg Tribunal convenes to hear the case of 22 high-ranking Nazis charged with war crimes. 12 were given the death sentence, 3 received life terms, 4 were given 10 to 20-year prison terms, 3 were acquitted. A war crimes trial in Tokyo in 1948 resulted in the hanging of Mayor Trojo and 6 others. In 1946, a year after the war, in March, speaking in Fulton, Missouri, Winston Churchill announces that an Iron Curtain has descended across the continent of Europe, signalizing the beginning of the Cold War. Okay? So I hope that is helpful. If you all have any questions, please shoot me an email about that. I tried to be as clear as I could about it, and this time I will be posting with the video. Good luck.